Welcome to the Tech Arena Fireside Chat. My name is Allyson Klein, and today we are heading into Mobile World Congress. And I have a fantastic guest with me, Ami Badani, CMO of Arm. Welcome to the program, Ami. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me.
So,
Excited.
Ami, you've never been on Tech Arena before, so why don't we just start with a bit of background? You've got such an interesting background in the tech space and what you bring to Arm. Can you just tell us a little bit about that and about your role at Arm today?
Sure. Yeah. I like to call myself an investment banker turned marketer. Part of my career, I was an investment banker at some of the world's largest banks, Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan. And then I kind of ventured after business school, I ventured into the tech space and joined some of the large tech companies, some of the smaller ones as well. And then most recently, prior to ARM, I was at NVIDIA for about 4 years, leading one of their product lines in the networking business unit. And then for the last almost over a year, I've been at ARM in the chief marketing role capacity and lead pretty much all things marketing.
Now, ARM has been on the tech arena in the past, and it's such an interesting time for the company. You know, we look at 2025, and it's an incredible year for generative AI adoption across enterprise from edge to cloud. How do you expect this opportunity to take shape across industries?
Yeah, I think to your point, it's been exciting times. If you look at the last several years, it's really been about foundation models, largely focused on the cloud. With 2025, I think we'll really see that shift towards AI inference and agentic AI, as some like to call, and really the shift of compute from cloud to edge, whether that's smartphones, wearables, automotive. We're sort of already seeing some of that. I think, as these models start to grow in complexity, these foundation models start to grow in complexity, you'll see interesting things with frontier models, but all of that is great for ARM. And so, one of the things that we'll talk about, I'm sure, and get into is kind of the need for power efficient compute to really take advantage of AI from cloud to edge. And I think in 2025, we'll start to see a lot of these new use cases emerge because, I think what most people are asking is, great, we've seen a bunch on the model development, whether it's foundation models or frontier models, but how is this applicable to me? And so I think this year we'll really see that breakout year for these new and interesting use cases. And some of those could come in things like knowledge work, whether it's in finance, whether it's in legal, whether it's in marketing. On my team, we're certainly exploring all types of AI tools to really make the team and the folks' roles more productive. And then I think you'll start to see tools around and applications specifically for engineering, whether that's code development, which is a big focus right now. We'll probably start to see industrial, very industry specific types of applications like drug discovery and really trying to improve the rate and pace of getting drugs to market faster by reducing the amount of time for these clinical trials and accelerating, drugs to market, as I mentioned. I was just reading an article yesterday around a fascinating use case around humanoid robotic nurses in Japan that they've recently started to introduce. And I think Japan has one of the largest aging populations. And like many countries,
Mhm.
lots of folks are struggling to find nurses. So they're now testing humanoid robotic nurses to really help with the aging population. And I was just sort of thinking about in the US and in other countries in the world, in the next decade, senior citizens will outnumber children. So I'm sure that's going to be, a big focus around how can we use new types of AI use cases to really accelerate areas where we have problems around, workforce or whatnot. So what I'm kind of most excited about is seeing how all of the work that we've done on these models over the last several years is really going to take shape in these industries and help accelerate whether it's productivity or improving lives or whatnot.
Everything that you said just really speaks to the breadth of opportunity in the industry right now. I've been in the industry for a long time, and I can't really remember a time when opportunity was so right to drive transformation in the way that we're working and the way that we're living. I'm glad that you brought up the code development because I know that you have a very deep history in enabling developers. I think there's an incredible transformation taking place with developer activation, with the advancement of AI. How do you see this transforming how solutions are delivered?
Yeah, I think, I've been in the space for last several years and in the AI space. And certainly when I was at my time at NVIDIA and now at Arm, developers are really at the heart of a lot of these AI transformations and truly at the
Mhm.
heart of Arm. We spend a lot of time making sure at Arm our software is integrated into the tools of all of our major frameworks so that, the developer experience is frictionless. And it's really important for us to empower developers and really have them take advantage of the performance and power efficient compute so that applications can be deployed at scale across all ARM-based devices, whether that's on the cloud all the way to the edge. So we really believe that software drives the flywheel for hardware. And as more and more applications are built for ARM, what it enables is that the need for more ARM-enabled devices. So you can imagine that we spend a lot of time thinking about the developer experience and making sure that we really, empower the developer. So I think, that's sort of how I see it evolving over time. There's going to be kind of a standard set of tools, a standard set of libraries, a standard set of frameworks that are really going to help empower developers to be able to create applications for these power efficient compute architectures. I also think that what's going to happen, and I mentioned code being one of the key use cases that a lot of folks are developing applications around. And I think AI is really going to democratize how development is done. I sort of
Mhm.
look at my own household. I have a 13-year-old son, and some of the things that he's trying to do around, a good example is predicting the NFL draft, looking at previous statistics over the many, many years. And so he's actually trying to create a model and train that model based on historical data to predict future, NFL stats. And he's never had coding experience, but just watching him spin up a Jupyter notebook, going to OpenAI, understanding the prompts to ask to spit out Python code to then put it into the Jupyter notebook and create this LLM essentially. I mean, it's remarkable without knowing how to code at all. So I think that's what we'll see a lot of going
Mhm.
forward. And the innovation that I'm sure that we're seeing right now at breakneck speeds, we've just never seen that before. So I think we're going to really see that progress being made much, much faster than what we've seen in previous technology revolutions.
Now, I love the story about your son, and I'm thinking about the NFL draft now, as opposed to my next question. ARM is really interesting because it's a foundational solution across so many computing solutions. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is where you see the most acute relevance within the AI era. And is this something that you see playing out across the entire gamut, or are there some targets that seem the most relevant for ARM processors?
Yeah, I think we've been in the space I think in the computing space for more than 3 decades. We're really the core of the computing revolution, if you want to think about it that way. Power, for us, we power everything from mobile phones to cloud to autonomous vehicles to devices on the edge. We have about more than 300 billion devices. So that's 300 billion devices running on ARM, which touches about 100% of the connected population. So pretty much everyone is interacting with an ARM-based device. So you can imagine our compute platform is pretty ubiquitous. And so what we believe is that all of these devices in some way, shape, or form will be AI enabled in the future, whether it's, in the cloud doing massive cloud scale training or whether it's at the edge running inference. And so it's not really a specific space or industry. ARM is really at the heart of all of this in terms of the future of AI from cloud to edge. And the reason for that is you really need power efficient compute. You need flexibility. You need high performance. And that's what the ARM compute platform really brings. And that's why we're sort of at the heart of all of these AI experiences as we progress.
Do you think the importance of energy efficiency has been overlooked in this time of large model training?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a great question. I don't think it's been overlooked necessarily, but I think what's been happening is it's more of an afterthought. And
Hmm.
so, you look at sort of the focus of the last several years, it's been on bigger models, more compute. But all of that, unfortunately, comes at an energy tax or an energy premium. And so now people are realizing that it's actually one of the biggest constraints to scaling. I like to say no power, no AI. And really, power is at the heart of the problem in terms of if we don't solve the power problem, we won't scale AI in terms of where we need to go. Whether you think of it as AGI or whatnot, you eventually need more compute, you need more power. And so what you're seeing now is the conversation shifting to power efficiency, power efficient forms of compute. And the reason for that is if you look at an average data center, most of the power is consumed by the chips and cooling of the actual racks, the server racks. So,
Hmm.
probably 50 to 60 or even, 50 to 60% or even more in terms of the power required goes into really those specific areas. And at a chip level, the reasons why energy consumption at the chip level is sort of dramatically increasing, and really we need to kind of think through how we have more power efficient forms of compute is because, one, you need scaling. Secondly, it's all about memory. And then third is continuous processing. So, if you sort of look at all of that, they all consume energy. With scaling, it's all about bigger models, more parameters. Every parameter needs to be trained, stored, processed. That all requires energy. Then you look at memory. There's HBM on every accelerator. Those are more power hungry than traditional forms of memory. Then you look at continuous processing, moving data in and out between the accelerator and the head node, whether it's the CPU, and every read write consumes power. And then you look at agentic AI, which is all
Hmm.
about continuous decision making, the ability to reason and think. And that just requires lots and lots of processing. And all of that just requires more and more energy. So now, now that people have sort of, thought about, okay, we need to have fixed the power problem in order to scale to AGI or everyone's definition of AGI, we're now going from gigawatts or megawatts of power, which is sort of what was the conversation over the last several years. But now what we've realized is you need more compute. So now we're thinking about gigawatts in terms of the amount of
Hmm.
power consumption. So that power problem has obviously come front and center to everyone thinking about how they scale AI. And I think most folks are thinking about power efficient compute because, as I mentioned, that's one of the most critical forms of consumption of energy. And then folks are thinking about renewable, nuclear energy, et cetera. So it's great that the problem was overlooked for obviously a number of years, but it's now at the forefront of us thinking about scaling AI. So that's how I think, what we'll see going forward is really new solutions to drive solutions for the power problem.
Yeah, and as you were talking, the thing that came to my mind is inference isn't exactly a compute non-intensive workload either. So the broad
Right.
proliferation that's coming is just going to make this problem more acute. um,
Right.
which
Exactly.
really speaks to ARM's value. And I was thinking about the 300 billion devices that you referred to
Yeah.
earlier. That just speaks to the amount of partners that you're working with across the globe. How are you working with them to deliver innovative compute platforms to address these new use cases, tackle energy efficiency, and what notable successes are you seeing from these efforts?
Yeah. As I mentioned, we've been in business for a long time. So well, we are blessed to have a large, large ecosystem of partners, whether that's across silicon, whether that's cloud partners, whether that's software partners, with the whole focus of how can we help the ecosystem deliver power efficient compute from cloud to edge. Again, back to the previous question around power efficiency. And so we've been really working with the ecosystem, whether it's on AI and AI compute or whether it's on general purpose compute. So the collaboration with our partners across the ecosystem is super, super important. And, we spend day in, day out really with our partners pushing the frontier of what the advancements in AI are going to look like, or where does compute really need to go. And so, from a success perspective, I think, we have many, I think I can kind of name a few off the top of my head based on the specific areas and segments that we play in. So from a data center perspective, I think, we have a large and growing data center business. And a few notable successes there are NVIDIA. We partner with NVIDIA on many of their AI platforms. In the data center specifically, Grace Blackwell, which is now shipping in production. And Grace of the Grace Blackwell system is based on ARM, specifically because it's the most power efficient compute platform there is in the market. So it's become the main platform. Grace Blackwell has become the main platform for AI training and inference. So that's one notable success. Beyond NVIDIA, there's many hyperscalers, whether it's Amazon AWS with Graviton, which powers things like Amazon Prime Day, our favorite shopping day of the year, or whether it's Netflix for streaming services. In fact, there's an interesting statistic that more than 50% of new compute capacity is all based on ARM within AWS. So that's one in every two instances are basically ARM-based instances, again, because of power efficient compute. And then last year we announced Microsoft, they have something called Cobalt, which is all based on ARM. Google announced a partnership with us last year for Axion, and that's based on ARM. So pretty much all of the large major hyperscalers in the data center space use ARM to build their power efficient compute platform. In the mobile space, a place that probably many people know us for, we have huge success stories with companies like Samsung and Apple to enable the next gen AI-enabled devices. So whether that's Samsung Galaxy or whether that's the Apple iPhone, those are all big successes for us and continue to be huge partnerships for us. On the wearable space, we work very closely with Meta glasses and the Meta team with their glasses. So all of the compute that's in Meta glasses that run things like, voice or audio or allow you to take, pictures, that compute is all based on ARM. So Meta's a great partner of ours. And then if you look at the autonomous space, almost all major automotive players use ARM in some way, shape, or form, whether that's Mercedes-Benz, Rivian, Honda, Nuro, which is an autonomous, one of the latest autonomous cars. And all of these have AI-enabled experiences inside the car, whether that's infotainment, you want to ask, your infotainment system about bring me to the nearest restaurant for dinner, or if it's on the road, detecting objects, anticipating behavior, doing things like lane assist, etc. These are all powered by ARM. So those are just a few of the great success stories that I can think of off the top of my head. I'm sure there are many more.
I think that you did a great job. When you're talking the largest training clusters in the world, all the way down to glasses, you're covering a lot of real estate.
Yeah.
I wanted to shift a little bit. Now you run marketing and communications for ARM, which means that you've got a really unique role in helping to shape how the industry markets the potential of technology this year. What do
Yeah.
you think customers want to hear from the industry?
Yeah. It's been a very fascinating and interesting journey in this seat. I like to tell people, I wake up reading the news and I go to sleep reading the news because you just never know what the twists and turns are nowadays. I think, what consumers really want to hear from the industry is ultimately, how does technology impact them? And that was going back to our, very first question around sort of, it used to be all about models. I think that's what you were hearing about AI, and now it's applicability and use cases. And so I think what consumers really want to hear about is how is that technology impacting them? What is the market impact? How does it drive business outcomes? Does it solve real problems? There's lots of promises being made, but what's real versus what's not? This year, we'll start to see a lot more practical applications with efficiency gains. So what is the business efficiency? What is the cost efficiency? What is the energy efficiency, as we were talking about earlier? So those are all some of the things that customers really want to hear from the industry. And then there are sort of the macro issues, accelerating AI while balancing risk. There's obviously a lot of conversations around AI safety going on. And then, for us specifically, power efficient compute and how that's being leveraged as a strategic asset, really shaping some of the world's economies and having a direct economic and geopolitical impact. So I sort of think about all of those very interesting, whether it's at the micro level, whether it's the macro level, but those are all things that I think customers really want to hear from us and others in the industry as we move forward.
Now you're speaking at MWC, and Arm obviously has a long history of delivery of solutions in the communications market, along with all the other markets that we've talked about. Somehow you didn't get on my panel. I'm not quite so sure. We should sneak you up
Would
on
love to.
stage.
Yeah.
What do you think is the focus of 2025's conference, and why is this important within the broader context of our conversation today?
Yeah, I think MWC it's been a center of conversation for a lot of these conversations that we talked about earlier, whether it's power efficiency, whether it's AI, whether it's connectivity. I think this year what we'll really see is that intersection of AI, 5G, edge. From an AI standpoint, I think we'll have lots and lots of conversations around the advancements of generative AI, the advancements of agentic AI. What are the transformative impacts of AI, as we talked about earlier? On the 5G side, there'll be probably lots of conversations around the future of connectivity. How can you use AI with 5G? We announced a partnership last year with the consortium to really progress that forward around 5G. And really, I think what MWC provides is connectivity at the core. And this will enable AI experiences that will need power efficient compute. So I think those are some of the conversations that we'll hear about at MWC. And it really all pertains to all of our earlier discussion points around where we see AI scaling, applicability of AI, the macroeconomic implications of AI, and connectivity is really at the core of that.
That's awesome. And I was just kidding about my panel. I'm definitely going to be coming to your session, and those who are listening should absolutely come along as well. Final question. You were at the front and center with the Stargate announcement earlier this year, and you're taking a notably larger leadership position in 2025 with bold statements on AI leadership. What do we have to look forward to from ARM this year, and what are you most excited about?
I think for many of us, we could probably all attest that it's been a breakout year for AI, and we're just getting into March, so there's probably a lot more ahead of us. It's a big year for us. Here at ARM, we announced Stargate, or we were named as one of the key technology partners in Stargate, announced by OpenAI, Oracle, SoftBank, and others. And really, ARM is a key technology partner, being the CPU of choice within Stargate. Then, later, I think in early February, we announced a partnership with OpenAI and SoftBank around Crystal Intelligence. And that's really around bringing enterprise AI at scale. So to your point, ARM is taking an even bigger leadership role in AI, whether it's scaling training and inference at the best possible performance per watt from cloud to edge. But what I really like to think about with an ARM perspective is that we're sort of in the middle of everything going on in AI. You can't really do anything without a power efficient compute platform, and that's really where we fit in. And that's why, when you think about all the interesting conversations happening in AI, usually ARM shows up. And with this, I think you'll start to see a lot of new AI use cases, whether that's on device, in cars, in industrial systems, in homes. Then I think we'll start to see some, software optimizations, AI software optimizations to make it easier to build, scale, and deploy on ARM. And so, to your point, what gets me excited is really redefining what's possible with AI computing and doing that at ARM. Whether that's, the pace at which the industry is innovating, ARM is really at the middle of all of it. So, we're in a great place. many, many exciting things on the horizon. And so I'm super excited to be here.
Well, Ami, thank you so much for being here with us today. I learned a ton, and I'm sure our viewers did too. If folks want to continue the conversation with you and the ARM team, where can they go learn more about what we've discussed today?
First of all, thank you for having me. The conversation was lovely, and would love to continue the conversations. And so I'm pretty active on social on my own channel, primarily on LinkedIn, but we have lots of interesting conversations going on our company handles. So pick your favorite, whether that's LinkedIn or whether that's X or whether that's Instagram or whatnot. We're pretty active from a company perspective on all of our company channels. We have a big, as I mentioned earlier around developers, we have a lot going on in the developer space. So, I would encourage developers to check out our developer tools and resources. On the newsroom, you can keep updated on everything going on with ARM. We have, I would say weekly announcements at this point, and blogs on interesting topics that are happening in the way that we think about it. So those are all ways that listeners can really continue to stay up to date on what's going on in the compute space and in the AI space and with ARM.
Thanks so much for being here. We'd love to have you back sometime.
Thank you so much for having me.